Town Road.
Hi.
Hi there, I'm Lloyd Wood.
Hi, Ted Steinman.
Hi there.
Carol.
Carol.
Hi,
Ted
Bill
Steinman.
Marcus. Nice to meet you.
Ted Steinman. Oh, sorry. Ted Steinman, how you doing?
Nice to meet you.
As they say, come on down.
Okay, thank you.
Have a seat if you want, Mrs. Steinman.
Why don't you go ahead and sit? Sure, thank you.
It's nice to put a face to it.
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to meet, the dialogue,
Sure.
and obviously, it's our ultimate desire to come to the most easy, agreeable situation that satisfies all parties. That's our intent and our goal, as it has been from the very beginning.
Did you bring an attorney?
We did.
Yes,
I
we
think he
did.
wanted to make a statement.
Yeah, our attorney.
He's gonna come in, he's gonna have to sit up front.
Yeah, I
There's
can, I'm
another
happy
chair,
to.
just drag one up.
Thanks.
And your name for the record?
My name is Jeremy Eggleton, E-G-G-L-E-T-O-N.
Welcome to downtown Tufton.
I grew up in Multiborough, so I'm familiar with the neighborhood.
You have the floor, go ahead.
I'm going to let these guys talk about the facts of the situation because they're much more familiar with that than I am. I have a few things I just want to add, throw on to the back end afterwards, and we'll go from there.
Now, before we begin, the issue today, gentlemen, is,
Well, they're gonna tell us what the issue is.
okay,
Actually, that did raise a question that I had. Can't stop a lawyer. Question is, I looked at the last two meetings, the 3rd and the 10th, I think, that were recorded online. It looked like there's a decision pending today about whether to remove the stones or order the removal of the stones. Is that the issue that's on the table right now?
That's one of the issues.
Okay.
Sure.
yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
I'll give you a brief background. Approximately about 5 years ago, large trucks and boat trailers began to appear on our property, backing trailers into the lake and for large motorboats. With that came progressive destruction of the property at the access to the lake, knocking down vegetation, small trees, bushes. Then, in addition to that, the trucks with the big tires created deep ruts, and then with rain, there was debris and wash off with no filtration. So the area was really deteriorating, and one could see kind of scum and thick mud at the edge of the lake at the access point. Therefore, this was kind of a potential threat to the lake and to the quality of the water, which is obviously a wonderful resource for everyone who lives there, plus the town. Because of this, the then president of the Hidden Valley Association, Dave Smith, had a series of meetings with Carolyn Sundquist describing the situation and what could be done. Last August, Mark Ebbits, who was the current president of the Hidden Valley Properties Owners Association, my wife and myself met with Carolyn Sundquist and Jack Parsons in person.
Right at this table.
And we presented to them, I gave them a copy of our property deed that's registered in Carroll County and showed them where our property lines were, etc. We spoke about the potential destruction and plus addition of potential milfoil into the lake and the quality of water, etc. After looking at it, both of them said, this is your property. You can put barriers there to prevent large trucks and boat trailers from parking there. With that, Mr. Parson said, if you place the rock, please make them back at least three feet from the road so the plows will not be interfered with during the winter time. Jim Bean, working with our contractor, who did that exactly what town said, the stipulations, laid it in according with them. In addition, and with our intent to be a good neighbor, we said access to the lake should be appropriate, especially for small boats, kayaks, canoes, not just the large trailers. So when we put the rocks there, we told them, and it's listed there, that we would have a 3-foot wide opening so people could carry in canoes, kayaks, small rowboats into the lake. With that, we then went ahead and placed the rocks according to, obviously, the stipulations. Last December 22, we got an email that 2 people, one in the backhoe and one directing, were moving rocks on our property. Basically, our property was being vandalized, it was criminal trespassing, as a backhoe was moving rocks away from the opening. I called the chief of police after getting this. The chief went down himself that same afternoon, observed it, and called and said, yes, someone has moved rocks from the access point and it is open. He said that there was no one around, a lot of footprints, but there was no one around, when he was there. And that started, I guess, the whole litany, which I think you can go from there. One brief point, now there were 2 points. After the rocks were placed, a complaint was filed with the Department of Environmental Services. I then get a letter asking us to respond, which I did, and then the DES came last November and examined the property, and examined the whole situation, and then issued a letter saying no violation.
To us, they sent us a letter.
No violation by placing the rocks where they were. I gave a copy of that to the town, to Carolyn Sundquist. So I filed that letter with them showing this was the DES decision. In addition to that, the Fish and Game Commission stated that access to the lake is via car top access, meaning any small boats that we can carry on the top of a car. Nothing about anything else larger than car top access. So we do feel, point blank, that we operated in the best open, honest way, dealing with the town, meeting, getting permission, doing exactly as what we said, and then the litany of events of being vandalized and criminal trespassing. I won't even get into the cost of what it cost us, but obviously us and some neighbors funded the entire.
We have a letter
Okay, sure.
stating the cost.
Okay, fine, so,
We know what
fine,
that
as long as I have that, so that's basically that's the scenario of the situation. I do want to comment about law and order. My father was a policeman. I was raised about law and order, and I understand it and respect it greatly, having from my whole background growing up. And with that, I'd like to make sure that my wife and I answer any potential questions you have about our view of the situation.
So you've watched the meetings that we've had recently?
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
What do you see as a reasonable outcome to this?
The reasonable outcome is that the rock should stay in place. The biggest thing is that the access to the lake, and I even put recent photographs, you can see the rapid drop off.
Do you have those photographs with you?
Yeah, I took pictures today showing the rapid drop off and then showing that actually.
You want to show them to the board?
Sure, I will. And showing that during this past winter, ice houses were then being pushed down through this, what was previously an area that would not have ice houses accessible to that, were pushed down there and further eroded the area, and you can see the area that was denuded. In addition, the guardrail, the very end of the guardrail, has been bent back by some truck, I'm sure, that hit that, and bent the guardrail back in that area. I'll just show you.
And I think we probably emailed the pictures after the fact to you if you want to have them.
I thought we had some pictures.
I thought we did too.
I mean, I looked at something. I drove by, but I didn't. I don't have a photographic memory.
The last ones that I had seen were from winter, so I just wasn't sure if you guys had anything non-snow.
Show them right over here, stand between them and to show up.
I'm good. You guys know.
This is the access next to the rail. I'll just show you a series of ones. And this boulder has been pushed back into the water. This was the area where we left a 3-foot wide opening. And it's now about 6 feet wide. And there's this rock and there's 2 other rocks that were pushed back into the lake with a backhoe. See the backhoe. Then stepping back, this is the bigger boulder. There's a smaller one there. And this was a 3-foot one. This is the first rock, and this goes right down the lake, and it's a sharp drop off. Again, looking at it from this angle, these are the end of the rocks here, 3 feet back from the roadway, as for that. Going down, and this is the wide open area. This was the guardrail that was bent by some truck, I would assume, bending this back, and you can see it bending it over. And stepping back, here's the guardrail, the rocks, and the opening, and ice houses being pushed down there, and this area is denuded. What happened was when we discussed this last year with Carolyn Sundquist, she said, after you do this, maybe the town would contribute by restoring some natural vegetation, and do some plantings consistent with natural vegetation in the area, as a filter to prevent further runoff and restore that area. So that,
Are these the rocks that you paid to?
yes, and then they extend up from here.
And are they on the pavement?
No, they're 3 feet, more than 3 feet back from the road. They are not on the pavement. We followed exactly what Jack Parson said, and what Jim Beam then worked with the contractor, and Jim Beam was actively involved, and they're all more than 3 feet back from the road, so we followed exactly what the town's directions were.
Okay.
Carol, is there anything else you want?
Yes, are you done, Ted?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, several things came to mind here. I think it's important for you to know, if you don't already, that if you go on the New Hampshire Fish and Game site and you go to our lake, you will see that it instructs the public that there is an access area on this lake, and it is the one near us, but it says very clearly, they have a little canoe, right, a picture of a canoe on the map where they show it to you. And they said, there's a sign with it that says that this access is only for car tops. I had never heard that term here before. And we have been there 40, how many years?
45 years.
45 years.
1974.
Almost a native.
Yeah, so we've been here 40, and we use the house year round. Yeah.
And we have never minded people coming with their canoes and kayaks, and that's fine, but as he said, around 5-ish years ago, they started coming with these enormous vehicles which were ruining our property and threatening the lake. So if you go, the public is looking online, they see it is an access, but they're not paying any attention to the fact that it's only for car tops, and that it is by the discretion of the owners. It also says that on the Fish and Game site. This is being allowed by the discretion of the owners. So we never had a problem with letting the small car top boats in, but now we're having a serious, major problem.
Well, the other thing I want to say briefly, our goal also, well, again, was not prevent access to the lake, but we would hope that people would park on the other side of the road and carry their boats in, which is flat, because that would prevent further destruction of this damped down area that really needs to be revegetated to prevent the silt and the mud from running off. So parking it across the street would be perfectly fine.
Do you own
We own the property across the street. So from that way, we bought this from Mr. Brown, the 8.3 acres across the road, quite a few years ago.
So the other thing I wanted to mention is that I know that the guy who went with us to meet with Carol and Mark Ebbits, that he has written you a letter, and I know that he asked that it be read at this meeting so that the public could hear another person's view of.
Do you have a copy of that?
Did you not get the letter?
No. There's a copy right here.
Yeah. I know that he asked that it be read at the beginning of the meeting, so he couldn't be here. He says in the letter he couldn't be here, but he wanted the public to know.
Would someone like to read it?
I'd be happy to read.
Any problem with her reading it into the record?
No,
We have it, so.
Okay.
Dear Board of Selectmen members, I am writing to correct what I feel are numerous inaccuracies discussed at your recent meetings concerning the rocks that were placed along Brown Road last year. I am hopeful that the following information will provide clarification of the situation and lead to a positive outcome for all of the stakeholders involved in this matter. In the summer of 2016, I, along with a group of concerned property owners in the Hidden Valley development, formed an informal group to address the significant erosion problem on Brown Road where it meets Lower Beach Pond on Carol and Ted's property. The erosion problem developed over time due to the compression of the soil along the shoulder of the road and on the embankment leading to the pond. It was caused by heavy vehicle activity in this area because of soil compression and defoliation. Parentheses, the bank was heavily covered with bushes not too long ago, end parentheses. During rainstorms, road pollutants and sediment from the bank itself wash into the pond. Our goal is in undertaking this project was simply to keep the pond healthy for all to enjoy, to protect property values in Lower Beach Pond area, and to ensure that corresponding property tax revenues did not decrease due to water quality issues. We sought to avoid the types of issues that, for example, have plagued Mirror Lake. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, I read in the Granite State News last fall that the town of Wolfboro has undertaken the exact same type of projects on portions of the roadways running along parts of Lake Wentworth and Russ Pond. David Smith, Ted, and Carol Steinman and I took the lead on the project. I have been a Tufton Borough taxpayer for approximately the last 25 years. The Steinmans and David Smith have been taxpayers for the town for over 45 years. All of us work or have worked in highly regulated service sectors, meaning medical, education, and banking, our entire careers. From our experience, we understood that we could not simply correct the problem without specific guidance and approval of the town of Tufton Borough. To that end, we approached Carolyn Sundquist during her office hours with our concerns and had a series of 3 or 4 meetings to discuss possible solutions to the problem. Jim Beam and Jack Parsons were present at meetings or involved in some phone conversations. Only after the aforementioned discussions and with careful coordination and guidance from the town's elected representatives did our group move forward with this plan to add the boulders. We spent approximately $3,600 from our personal resources to have a contractor place the boulders along Brown Road in the agreed upon location. The contractor interacted closely with town personnel to make sure the job was done correctly. In short, we acted in good faith and with the specific approval of the town. Carolyn Sundquist understood the water quality threat, having dealt with a similar situation previously at Mirror Lake. The plan was for the town or state to follow on with additional work to revegetate the area around the rocks to restore the natural occurring filter that had once been in place. Carolyn Sundquist and our group acted to protect the town's natural resource and, in turn, its property tax base. I am uncertain why we have been so heavily criticized for these actions. Residents in our development do not receive much for their tax dollars, as our roads are maintained by our local association, meaning surfacing and snow plowing, etc. And since many of the homes are second homes or retirement homes, there are few children in the school system. Despite receiving limited services from our substantial tax dollars, our group felt it was important to make a personal investment, and we were heartened that the town was considering an add-on investment or help in securing funds from the state to complete the project at a future date after we completed the rock wall. Many of us, especially David Smith, have been involved heavily with the Lower Beach Pond Dam over the years. These efforts resulted in the full replacement of this structure in the fall of 2016. The substantial costs to replace and maintain the dam are sourced exclusively from homeowners in the pond's watershed via special property taxes. One of the state engineers informed us during the reconstruction of the dam that it was close to failure. Had it failed, it would have taken at least several years to replace due to permitting engineers, studies, etc., and there would have been mud from Brown Road out for 200 yards, making use of the pond by the general public nearly impossible. My point is, we have worked hard to protect Lower Beach Pond for all to use and enjoy. We are doing positive things for the area despite the negative rhetoric that would lead one to think the opposite. I have heard several folks say that we tried to keep people out of Lower Beach and that our actions make the road unsafe. Neither of these comments could be further from the truth. First, an opening was left in the rock wall for anyone to carry in their small boats and kayaks and canoes. All that was asked was that the general public park across the street. This action would keep cars off of the environmentally sensitive road shoulder and provide some separation between the homeowners and those parking their vehicles along Brown Road. The solution doesn't place a burden on anyone. This is the last paragraph. I'm sure you can understand my surprise and dismay. The town seems to unilaterally be leaning towards reversing its previously explicit approval to undo this positive project that we have started. I have two requests. First, would you please read this email into the record at the start of the meeting on April 24th so that the general public can hear an alternative perspective on the situation. I would attend your meeting to discuss it myself, but long scheduled travel plans make this impossible. Second, and most importantly, I'd ask you to consider the aforementioned facts in your decision-making process and strive to reach a solution that addresses the totality of the problem. Lastly, I would note that the opinions contained in this email are solely my own. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully submitted, Mark Ebbits.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to your question, what do we look from the standpoint of a reasonable side? I wanted to make sure I didn't ignore that. It is our desire, and to protect everything else, is that the boulders be moved back to block the access point with leaving a 3-foot wide space for people to carry in small boats to keep people out, and just to prevent destruction. The second thing is maybe even a sign to park on the opposite side of the road so they don't destroy, progressive destroy the shoulder. So people can park, walk 10 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards across the road and carry any small boats. So we just restore that, and that would be my recommendation.
The ideal solution.
Right?
That would be,
Yeah, that would be my solution is, again, to
That would
protect
be a
the pond,
compromise,
protect the
right.
property, make sure that people have access to the lake and can park there, and it's not park along one side of the road all the way, and sometimes you can have 10, 11 vehicles parked there. They park on the other side of the road, again, it's our property, and that's perfectly fine. And, you know, so we have no problem with that. We try to be, you know, as ecumenical as possible.
So, thank you. And I just want to kind of summarize things from my perspective. Obviously, we object to an order that requires my clients to move the stones, or an order from the town to just go out and have the Public Works Department move the stones.
just before you get rock and roll,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you know where the boundaries are through some lot line.
Well,
Okay, so 3 Rod Road's been established in 1842.
yeah.
Where is your assumption
So
that right-of-way lot line is?
all I did is I took a 25-foot measuring tape and I walked to the middle of the road, and then we walked it out as far as it stretched, basically, because half of 49 feet is 44 and a half feet, right? So when you do that, the tape doesn't reach the water, okay? And that's the most important fact in this case.
Well, yes, it does.
It doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Well, it
I was
doesn't,
out there 2 days
Well,
ago.
I
well,
would,
it doesn't
it didn't
reach.
today,
so-
it didn't
It
today.
might, if you're standing in the middle of the bridge, yes, it touches the brook, for sure.
If you're, okay.
But where people drop
Those
their
rocks
boats-
that are currently there
Yeah,
are less than 9 feet off of the center line.
that's right.
They're off the edge of the
That's
road.
absolutely right, I'm not
Okay.
disagreeing with that.
So if the road bed's 21 feet wide,
Yeah.
that would mean that that's 19 feet. All I'm trying to establish is it your position that the road is closer to the east side of the right-of-way than it is to the west side?
I'm assuming it's right down the middle. We haven't done,
Okay, so if the right-of-way is right down the middle,
yeah,
your position is that that doesn't give us any access to the lake?
that's right,
Okay,
yeah.
go on.
Obviously, you know, if put to the test, you're gonna need, and we're gonna need more than me standing there with a 25-foot tape to
Right.
get that established,
Well, there are
right?
2 issues here that we can argue. One is a right-of-way established in 1842.
Yep.
And we have all the right in the world to use that right-of-way however we want.
Yep.
The other is a prescriptive right-of-way.
Yep.
I think we can move beyond a prescriptive right-of-way pretty easily in that that area is well within the 49.5 feet. If you're saying that if you're stipulating that the road's right in the middle of the right-of-way,
Yeah,
you can all take a tape measure out and figure it out.
yeah, the stones that are on the side of the road are within the right-of-way, no
Right.
question about that, no
Right.
question about that. The question.
I will point out that shortly after they were placed, you received a letter from the board about the placement of the stones and the fact that they were in the right-of-way.
No, I did not.
No, that is,
That's not
I would like to disagree, I would like to agree to disagree. They asked us to move the stones, I said, oops, we made a mistake. No mistake was made. We sat here, went through that very
You
carefully.
did not sit with this board.
No, but I'm
You
sat.
sat with a member of the board.
Well, but basically, you can't move the goalpost. After you
Now, the
establish.
goalpost is always set. Unfortunately, the mistake was made.
Yeah.
One selectman cannot decide from the board of selectmen.
I
We
understand,
didn't
but
know that.
I know you didn't. And we've already apologized, I think I apologized last week about that.
Yeah.
But, so you were working under the
Assumption of.
assumption that
Parson,
one
Carolyn
selectman's gonna make
Sundquist,
it.
And Jim
And
Bingham.
Jack was with us, and he told us to put the rocks back 3 feet.
Where to put them, exactly.
Everything needs to be a vote of the board.
Yeah.
We act as one, and we cannot act
So what do we
individually.
do now?
Well, wait,
So,
so with due respect, I disagree that they needed your permission to do the rock placement, okay?
In the right-of-way.
As a matter of law, I need to state that for the record, okay?
and your basis for that?
Because this is their private property. Your road, your town road, is an easement on their private property. It's a 3-rod road across their property, and so you share the right to that property. The placement of those stones within the right-of-way needs to not inhibit the viatic use of the road, okay? And so, to the extent that they approached this town, sought the guidance of the town as to what placement would not interfere with that viatic use, obtained that guidance, and then implemented the placement of the stones under that guidance. They did so in conformity with the statute and under the authority of this town with respect to how to comply with the statute, and therefore the town has stopped at this point from changing its mind on that.
So it's an interesting legal theory.
Well, I get-
Unfortunately, what you've gotten wrong in it is that that right-of-way established in 1842 is for the purposes of the town. And we haven't abandoned that right-of-way. So they were within their rights, I suppose, to put some rocks there. We're within our rights as the owner of the right-of-way to remove them.
I disagree, but I understand your position. I understand that the statute that you're relying on, okay?
Yeah.
But it's still,
So-
but someone vandalized, someone came on our property with a backhoe and vandalized and did not have the right. The town did not give the right, tell someone to move the rocks, I assume.
Well, No, two wrongs don't make a right.
No, I
So the
understand.
second one was a wrong
I don't
as
know
well
if
as the
that's
first
gonna-
one.
Yeah, I understand, but I just, you know, so.
That's a separate issue from we're dealing with. And-
Sure.
And my understanding is you're dealing with our police department on that, correct?
We are.
Okay.
And that's fine, and they're looking into it. But you have to understand the perspective of these guys. I mean, who amongst us wants somebody getting into a backhoe and driving around on their land moving rocks?
Right.
You know?
Nobody.
Exactly, right?
Right, absolutely.
So,
But that's not the issue
Sort
that
of
we're dealing with.
tangential with what we're
Okay.
trying
Well-
to figure out. Because, you know, there are any number of
If
issues
the rocks
along the
had not
way.
been placed where they were placed in the right-of-way, then somebody would not have come along and moved them.
somebody's solution was to come to the town and try and figure this out. And I know this is a police issue, so we'll
Right.
set that aside. I'm just telling you to understand, you know, where these guys are coming from.
All we did was follow the directions, the instructions provided by the town. We didn't do it then come to the town, we came to the town first
Right.
and asked the permission and asked us what we can do. So all we did in the best faith was come to the town, get the advice of what to do.
And before those rocks were moved by somebody in an unauthorized
Some
manner,
misguided
you had
use.
received a letter from us saying that they were in the right-of-way and they needed to be moved.
Did you ever see a letter like that?
It was back in, I don't,
I have every sheet of paper.
I know it's
We
in,
can get to it.
yeah, yeah. I
So-
can't tell you the exact date, but it was,
We'll assume we've seen it.
when the board became aware of the fact that these rocks were placed in the right-of-way, we sent a letter to you saying that they were in an incorrect position and they needed to be moved. Shortly after that, attorneys started talking back and forth about it, and of course, nothing has happened since then.
I do now remember that, and I remember emailing with Carolyn, and she said, I'll get back to you if there's anything to get back to you about, and I never heard from her again. So we thought it was not a problem.
Someone had the letter.
I remember when you explained that out, we did get something, and then we were in
Sorry,
touch
I
with her,
interrupted
and that's
you.
when
Go
we got a
ahead.
Thank
lawyer
you.
to see what we could do to protect.
So it looks like that letter was dated October 17th, 2016. So, thank you for letting me continue. So, I guess as I understood the discussion at the last two meetings, it appeared to me that there was a lot of focus on the line of stones on the shoulder. And I think Dr. Steinman is testifying that there's flexibility there in terms of what you want to do with those rocks. The real thing that they were trying to achieve is to make sure that access to the lake was limited to carry top boats, so that canoes and rowboats could be put in there just as they had been allowed to do so for many, many years. I looked into this with my town, former town of Boulder Borough, because it's similarly situated. I have a lot of contacts there because I was close to the town officials and so on and so forth. And what they do there with range roads that access public ponds is similar. It's the car top access, and they try to restrict putting boats in. It's not this town, I totally recognize that. But what I want to emphasize is that these guys were trying to implement a solution that is recognized as reasonable public policy in areas around here. And I think as Mr. Devitt's letter testified, this is the way they're trying to do it in Wolfboro too. So these guys weren't crazy to be trying to do what they were trying to do in this situation. And if we could come up with an arrangement that essentially affected their goal, which was preventing trailers and boats from dropping in on their land, then I think that would be a reasonable outcome for everybody.
Yeah, it's just the trucks and boat trailers that have destroyed the shoulder and the vegetation and the access. I mean, that, if you reduce it, it's only that. It's the boat trailers and the large trucks.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's never been an issue until that, if I have to synthesize it, that's where the issue is.
Right.
Is the boat trailers and
At
the
the
large
access,
trucks
right.
and the destruction that they've created.
I'm not willing to stipulate to the destruction, but I think
I
we have a couple of,
I can show you pictures from before, and if you go there now,
yeah,
you'll see It's defoliated, there's no vegetation there, there's no shrubbery, there's no trees, there's nothing.
But it has been.
Now, earlier you
That has not been that way. We've been here 45 years, and I can be as honest and straightforward as I can be. This is a new phenomena
Yes.
created by boat trailers and trucks. Absolutely.
That being said,
Yeah,
that is the access point for the public to a great pond.
if we give permission. it
No,
says.
there's an RSA, it's on our right of way. This is our position.
Yeah.
It's on our right of way. It is the only access to that great pond, which is guaranteed by statute. We are within the statutory rights that are eliminated in 271. And 233, if you want another statute, CODIS, assuring that all members of the public shall have access to and use of the public waters for recreational purposes. Lower Beach Pond is a great pond. It's state water. It's not town water. But it needs access. I would love nothing better than have public access created somewhere. That's not an available option currently. So that access is going to be our access.
But why
But
does
we're
it have
not
to be
protecting
across our private property? That's the feeling that I have
In
sometimes.
1842, that no longer became exclusively your private property. It became encumbered by an easement. The easement is the road easement.
So I have a different
It's no
question.
different than my house on Ledge Hill Road
Can I
has an easement right across the front of it.
clear up something in my mind?
Sure, sir.
Excuse me, I'm not an artist. This is the bridge,
Yes,
this is the stone wall,
Right,
right.
this is the water.
yes.
Right.
The road goes kind of wide, and these are the rocks that were put in adjacent to the pavement,
Right,
correct?
3 feet off, 3 feet off of the
More than 3
road.
feet.
Right, okay.
Mhm.
As I understand it, your property goes down to the
It's
high,
all- it goes
the
all
high
the way.
water mark, right?
No, our
No,
property
actually-
goes to the middle of the culvert in the middle of here.
If you go in the Carroll
Goes to
County
right here,
record,
right there.
our property line begins in the culvert. And Mr. Ringer's property begins there. Our property begins halfway across the culvert
The big pipe.
and goes along the road. So we have it, I gave it to Carolyn and hopefully Emmett, we have the deed.
So
It
your,
was registered.
so,
So our property line starts right along the road.
so
In
your
the
property
middle of
line
the
goes,
bridge, right here.
goes something like this,
Yes,
correct?
Correct.
exactly correct, sir.
And you have those deeds.
I have those deeds, and I gave them to Carolyn when I presented it. I mean, I just showed her.
I mean,
this-
technically, your lane goes right to the middle of the road. And if you own the other side, it goes all the way across the road.
No, it's not, come on now.
No, it does, because it does, because if we discontinue the road, that land reverts back to your ownership, exclusive of the right of way.
No,
That's how it works
it's not a
everywhere.
prescriptive road according to the documents Sue gave me.
That's what we-
And they're all-
It talks about laying out the,
It's
road.
laying out a new road.
in 1842, and then again in 1910,
Yeah.
and then again in 1970.
Right.
So
Go black.
it's not a rangeway. I can't find anywhere where it's a range road. I cannot find anywhere where it's a prescriptive road. I haven't found that word anywhere.
It was laid out, but it is an easement. It is
Right.
not a seizure of the land by the town.
No, no more than the power company sees.
Right.
It's where the landowners gave permission for the town to lay out a new road, quote, to build a new highway.
Right.
And it talks about beginning at the stake and the stone, and 3 times they met in 1910. They even, go back to 1842, laid out all the points.
Well, let me ask a different question.
Sure.
You're part of the Hidden Valley
Yes.
Association. Is Hidden Valley prepared to offer an alternative location for public access?
We have no
I
idea.
can't,
I would doubt
I
it,
could
but
not speak for them.
we
I
can't
have
speak
no.
for that.
if
No,
I said anything, I'd be doing it on the
again,
spot.
you're part of that group,
Yeah.
but And you don't like the public accessing at that point?
No, we
No,
don't
no,
mind
That's
the public access.
misrepresentation. We came here and said the
For
public
40
should have
years, we
access
didn't
in
mind.
good faith. There's a 3-foot
You
wide
don't,
opening.
excuse me, you don't like the public parking on the
Rear
roadside?
side of the road.
With trucks and boat trailers because of the destruction. It's not the parking, it's the destruction that
Okay,
occurs as a
and
result of
and
the
there are
parking.
ways that we can address the, that issue on the roadside other than boulders. Now, and I want to just step back. Earlier, you mentioned a concern with milfoil.
Yeah.
Have you seen any milfoil in
No,
Lower Beach
in
Pond?
fact,
Not yet.
we put, when the boats were there, we put brushes there and asked, and mentioned how milfoil is spread. The brushes were stolen in the first 2 days.
Well,
I'm the same, yeah.
I happen to know just a little bit about milfoil. And I am not aware of any milfoil in Lower Beach Pond.
That's what we
That's
want to
exactly
hear.
right.
It's exactly right, and if it happens, then it's too late. See, once it gets a foothold, then it's too late. So if you're waiting for something to happen, then it's, the best thing
But
is
it-
prophylaxis, so you can prevent that from
It's
happening.
not
That's right.
exclusion that keeps it.
That's right, but
It's clean
you know,
boats.
if you never bring a boat that's been in another body of water in, then the chance of bringing in milfoil is
All we're saying is
infinitesimal.
motor big boats on boat trailers and big trucks, that's all. We're not saying all boats. Rowboats, kayaks, canoes, fine. It is the destruction of the roadway with the trucks and boat trailers. I mean, if we just focused on that, that's the issue.
Let me just say, I don't know what you're envisioning, but when they have the trucks and they take it over and make it go straight, they put the trailers into the lake, so that's why they've ruined everything. These giant things with multiple wheels, they lower it into the water and then they just slide the boat off into the water itself. So, and then we have then they come with large trucks that have open backs and they put the trucks down on our property and then they slide the boat into the water.
And
So
then they-
over and over again, it's made all this
And then as they
debris
try to
and
come
mess
up, obviously
and
they gun it a little
ruination.
bit because they're in a steep angle. So they gun that and that just creates more and more ruts and destruction.
So our primary urgency is around the access area for large, we don't want boats and we don't want trailers and trucks going onto our property to put their boats in the water.
This is the same situation as we had on Lang Pond Road, where people were putting boats across that little beach and backing, out into the water, where the perch beach
There's
is.
another boat ride,
And
so
we-
we're off
right.
109.
Yes, and what happened is, and this guy worked on it for a number of years, is that's a beach area, and someone can carry a canoe or a kayak in, but no launching of motorboats, no putting bog houses
And that's the same solution that Moulton Borough.
Well, on a range road, we're on a town
in.
road.
The bottom line is, these people have no problem with seasonal access to the body of water.
Right.
But you take your canoe, you take your kayak, anybody else go ice fishing with their auger, it's not a problem.
Exactly.
It is these bigger vehicles that,
I just find I find it difficult to reconcile the facts that I know 3 different individuals. One was the former chief of police in Ossipee, who put ice houses on that lake for the last 25 years. And now all of a sudden it's an issue.
Are they here? I mean, they're not testifying.
We're not having a trial either. Okay.
But
So what I'm saying is you've got apocryphal information on your side. I'll throw mine out there just to
And I will tell you that people have
counter
dragged.
Mr.
This
Ebbits.
isn't apocryphal. This is my client's.
Mr. Ebbits' letter
view.
was pretty much.
excuse me, one at a time, please.
Sure,
Will you please
absolutely.
speak?
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm saying that I personally fished out of a boat in 1958 with Byron Heald, who's currently dead, at that boat launch. So that boat launch has been there for a number of years.
And what kind of boat was it?
It was a 15-foot aluminum boat with a 2-horsepower Evernote engine.
Did you carry it in, or did you
No,
drop it in?
we had it in the back of his 1951 F-100 pickup truck. We backed up to the water and slid it into the water. You know, I was 7 years old, so I wasn't giving him a lot of help.
Yeah.
My point being is that that boat launch has been there for a lot longer than any of us have been around. More importantly, I think it's self-controlled. I've been out there in a kayak, and there's, aside from the rock that got put in the lake, there's another bunch of rocks out there as you get to the lake. I don't know how you get over that with a motor. Be that as it may, we can't eliminate ice fishing from the, we can't, in my estimation, make some sort of cultural judgment that only people that own kayaks and canoes can go out there. I mean, it's a public body of water. It is a great pond. That is a historical boat launching area. Now, should we do some remedial work there? Probably. But to, you know, make some sort of major change to its operation, I think is doing a disservice to all the other citizens in the town.
Can I speak about ice houses?
Okay, you're next.
People have dragged ice houses across our property during the winter repeatedly, and it formed new tracks. I had to replant in the springtime many times over bushes and trees that were destroyed during ice houses being dragged across our property. Mr. Ringer, who you know has been here for a long period of time, he saw that. He himself put some boulders back there that tried to, this new axis was being created. He said people were just dragging their ice houses across the road. And then worse, someone left their ice house there in the springtime on our property. I had to call the town to have it removed, an ice house. So the answer is yes, ice houses have been, quote, dragged across our property. Can I also mention too, sometimes these things, when I came up today, every time I come up, I have to police the area. Beer cans, I picked up a toilet seat today, beer cans, trash, food containers, people who used it thought this is a public dump. And I do that each and every week. And I'm up here, and you know, is I police the area and try to clean up the trash that's just dumped on that property. And that happened, and it was the more the boat traffic in the summertime, the more trash that I have to clean up. That's just a little personal issue, but it just shows you this
The fallout from
the fallout
all this activity.
from this. And we're not trying to keep people out. The goal is to be a good neighbor and give people access to it. It's just to prevent the destruction of the property and impacting the quality of the water for the lake. That's the issue. Anyway, I'll stop. I've said it at the beginning. Yeah.
Well, we're all victims of people dropping trash. I mean, go up Mount Pleasant.
Like you to come up with a way to prevent the large boats from abusing us there.
I've gone on the Fish and Game website, and it is not a, I'm going to say, a large boat launch
No.
area. It's
No,
not
it's
registered
limited.
for
It's
that.
definitely limited, but Fish and Game doesn't have any authority to tell you what kind of boat you can put in there. That's not their, they don't have that ability. They can suggest that it's a small boat launch, and it is. They can suggest kayak and canoe usage, which is nice. I mean, but that's not within their purview. They don't do that. They don't set access limits. In fact, they raise money to build boat accesses, and that's the next step. If we can't come to some reasonable agreement that we all can live with, it becomes an issue where, you know, maybe Fish and Game takes some of their money and creates a boat launch.
Fish and Game has a program, it's funded by federal funds, that they will put boat launches in and pay for 2 weeks of it. The question is there a place on that lake? They're not going to do anything until everyone in this world is aligned.
You don't know. I mean, there's boat launches going in all the time. I mean, All I'm saying is that that changes the use of the lake completely, because now that boat launch will hold a major speedboat who might want to drive around Florida Beach Pond.
And the property
Yeah.
owner has no right whatsoever.
Well, no.
Assuming there's an access
Yeah.
right, which in this case, our position is there's not, and yours is that there is.
Well, there is, and you can lawyer it all you want, it is. So what we need to come up with is some sort of an agreement that satisfies the citizens of Tuftonboro and access to that pond. That's our job.
Right.
I mean, I'm not here to
And
bust your
we're
bubble.
absolutely in total agreement.
Yeah.
And I said before, this is, as I said before from the very beginning, we said, don't keep out. That's why when we came, we kept the opening, so people would have access to that. That was our intent, to be a good neighbor, not to keep people out, but let people enjoy that. The big question is, at what point in time is there a negative impact of construction, I say, from large boats and trailers that had the negative impact on the environment and on the lake? So we are exactly in the same position about having people have access to the lake. We feel very strong about that. We feel it's a resource that should be shared. How do you share that resource and protect the environment so that the resource stays there for a long period of time? I mean, that's the issue.
Dr. Steinman, let me ask you a question.
Just Ted, someone on that.
But before the boulders were placed along there, as a member of the general public, was there any way that I would know that that you had an issue with somebody trailer launching a boat there?
It didn't become an issue until people started using it in the destruction.
We have no trespassing sign there, and then the Fish and Game has put a sign there that says, this is private property, please respect it and don't leave your trash, and know that you're being given the right to be here by the owners of
Yeah,
this
it's-
property.
But was there a sign that said kayaks and canoes only?
No,
Okay.
no.
Because we didn't say that. It was, our response was in response to the change in the environment. It isn't that boat trailers and trucks have been there for 30 years, it's the last 5 years. So the milieu, the environment has changed. And our response was to the change in the environment and the destruction
never a
that
problem
occurred with the
before.
change in the environment. People, we've always had, we've been here since '74, so we've always
But
let
it
people
may
use it.
be that a less severe solution, a less severe approach to making people aware might have received better reception. For instance, if you put a sign up at that point that said, no trailer launched boats, please.
Do I have the right to make that statement? And the first thing that potentially someone could do is rip the sign down. I mean, I'm just saying.
If it's on your property, okay, and depending upon how it's worded, again, I don't use Lower Beach Pond, okay? I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody that does, all
Thank
right?
you.
Local residents who, for a long period of time, have accessed the pond and used it in the winter, in the summer, for ice fishing, for recreational fishing, for other recreation, down over the years. And I don't know what kind of boats they're using, what kind of access they have, but let's just say for a second that it's consistent with what they see around them. Suddenly, what has been used for a long period of time is not available to them because there's these huge boulders right in the right of way, all the way up to the point where they put their boats in. And you're watching this go on over time and the trend that you're concerned about, and right to be concerned. But has there ever been a conversation? I don't know that there has. So I'm Joe Schmuckatelli, and I've been, going down there with my fishing pole forever, and suddenly, and I go down there with say a 14-foot aluminum craft boat, and drag it down And now I can't get it in there because I got these boulders there, and it's like, what the heck's going on? Again, you're watching things that you see,
That's why we
I'm
came to the,
concerned with.
that's why we came to the council.
okay, but you didn't come to this board, and
We
we've
came to
already,
the
we've already,
previous board.
we've already
I mean,
said, we've already
In
said
the-
that.
In the best
that it
interest,
was-
I mean, we came, it was then, after a series of meetings between Dave Smith and Carolyn Sundquist, then said, so with Jack Parsons, Carolyn
But
Sundquist,
they know that
And
she,
and there was some discussion by this board about your interest in placing rocks. And it was certainly our understanding that it was not gonna be in the road right of way, which is why, once they were placed in the right of way, we sent a letter off to you saying they're in the wrong place. And regardless of whether you talked on the phone with the road agent who said, yeah, as long as they're not impeding snow, that's fine. The fact of the matter is that the impression that I had was that you were going to have these boulders in a place where they would keep people from crossing your lot, not in the right of way of the road. So once they were in the right of way, and this board was made aware of it, we sent you a letter and said, they're in the wrong place,
if you, I just want to put this shoe on the other foot.
right?
I'm sitting here and you come to me and say, you know what it is, and I tell you this is what you should do, and then you do that. Am I at fault for following the directions
So,
from the
so no,
town?
we're where we are now,
I know.
and we have to move forward.
Sure, I
And-
understand.
And I think certainly, it's my position that those rocks that are in the roadway right-of-way need to be removed from the right-of-way, period.
so if we've already said that if we feel it would be okay, it would be a compromise to move them to the edge of, all the way back, off the.
To the edge of the right of way.
I'll call the side of the road, I call it, the side of the road,
Right.
the edge of the road. Push them out to the tree, where the trees are, on our property. But when it gets to the access, the most important thing is we want some sort of barrier there that will allow people with small car tops to go through there, but not allow the destruction of our land to continue with the big
And
ones.
my understanding of the law is that as long as it's not in the right-of-way, that it's probably within your right to do it.
We
However,
measured it today.
However,
Yeah.
that doesn't address the other issue, which is access to the lake. It addresses the issue of the improperly placed boulders. You thought they were properly placed, but they're in the right of way. They need to be removed from the right of way.
Can we all agree where the edge of your property is?
We cannot agree as to where the property, the right-of-way stops. I don't think we have agreement on that.
All I have is a, all I
I
have is a
thought at
Carroll
one
County.
point in time you stipulated that the road was in the center of the right of way.
Well, that's what our
Okay, so if you stipulate that the road's in the center of the right of way, it just takes a
Well,
tape
wait,
measure.
I said, to me, it appeared as though the road was in the center of the right-of-way. I took a tape from there,
Right.
and it didn't reach the water in the location where trucks are dropped in the
Is the
water.
stone wall on your property?
Stone was on our property.
So that's a question of fact.
Excuse me, as I read through this, it talks about in front of Mr. Brown's house, talks about the right-of-way, the new road is 3 rods using the easterly stone wall as a boundary.
What stone wall?
The stone wall that's on your property.
No, but that's brand new. This is ancient history.
Or the
right?
stone walls that are on.
The stone walls, I looked at them
Brown
today,
Road.
they come down Brown Road from the Wolfboro line.
Yeah.
And they stop, I think, 2 lots before yours. So they're, whatever, however it is to off the road. So there are stone walls that probably align with those.
Yeah, there are stone walls on the Tuftonburg side of the river.
But
And
I
the
think
distance from the edge of the road to the middle of the stone wall is about,
Yeah.
24 and a half feet, right? So let me show you
Okay.
this little diagram here. So this is the Steinman house here. This is the lake. There's Brown Road. I'm just estimating based upon my measurement today, right? If the middle of the road's about here,
Yeah,
you know, this is your 24.5-foot line.
right.
Obviously, a surveyor would have to look at this to get it right. But there's about a foot of ground between the high water mark and the head. You're right, here,
This is the access that people use.
that's not where people put boats in, and they could not, because of the steepness of the terrain here. You couldn't manufacture a boat launch that got you in there.
No, you can't, but that's where people go in.
But it isn't, they go in here. So if we were
So,
allowed.
okay, so your argument is that the boat launch that's currently being used is out here?
Yes,
Okay, so that's why we don't agree.
okay. Right, we're getting
Because
somewhere.
we're not interested in going further than the right of way.
Yeah.
Our only interest is here.
Yeah. I mean, if the stones were placed, you know, on this line like that,
Right.
you know, at this point,
Then we have a solution.
well, I don't know, I'd have to talk to these guys about that. But you know, I don't think that's an accessible point. I mean, is that an accessible point with a boat?
With the boat,
Oh, right, where the road is, no.
you mean where it
It's
drops off?
impossible.
Right next to
It's
the
a-
bridge.
It's an immediate, it's a sheer,
Then you have
Drop-off.
to, you have to put a ramp in it, because that's a sheer drop off. That's a steep, right next to where the guardrail is bent back. There's a big steep drop off. The rail is here, and the rail is bent back, and then right next to the rail, where the rail
you
ends,
should have taken a picture.
that
No,
area
he understands.
Okay.
is a deep drop off. You couldn't, people
I don't
couldn't.
think people put in there. That's not where.
I just see a lot of trees. Yeah, I'm gonna have to visit this
Yeah.
site again.
I wish I could show you pictures from before and now, and you can see
It was so lovely, pretty.
the destruction that's occurred from the large. It's only the large, again, it's important, you know that we're not trying to keep people out. Absolutely not. It's the boats, the large trailers, and the trucks, and the consequences of their being, that's, if I
the
try to
major
reduce
issue.
it, that's the issue. And can we come to some conclusion, or something that,
Well, I think we got a price from our road agent for moving the rocks or removing the rocks, and I think moving the rocks was a couple $100.
Yes.
Can we take that upon ourselves, rather than,
To get those moved back.
or just,
No.
you know, we haven't finished the discussion yet, but let's
Yeah.
assume for a moment that the town will take and move them.
I have no problem with the town paying to remove the rocks. I'm not asking these people to.
So there's no money changing hands, now we just gotta figure out,
Where do we put the rocks?
Where
Because
are we
they're
gonna put
technically
them?
yours.
Can-
Or do we donate them someplace?
absolutely left it, you know, I said the goal is, can you just protect the pond from the boat trailers and the trucks? That's the issue, it's not, we're in total agreement. I think our
Well, most
difference is.
of all these rocks, if the town moved them back to where the trees are, off the side, what I call the side of the road, that would be okay, even though it will allow the people parking there to have the runoff go into the lake, which is bad for the lake. But it's the access area.
But see,
well, that's another issue. that
That's,
we need to-
well,
You see,
yes.
but if they couldn't.
But
put
there
it-
are, we had, until these people moved them, we had 2 or 3 rocks blocking the access with the space for people to walk between. So it's just 2 or 3 walks, it's just, you know, it's not 6 feet, 8 feet, how wide is the access?
Yeah, right now it's about 8 feet.
Do you want to go view the area again? Do the three of us need to walk together?
Yeah, we need to take a tape out, I mean, I think if we, and this is all being filmed, so it's essentially
Right. Well,
testimony.
for sure, before those rocks get moved, we need to definitively say this is where they're gonna go.
Right.
So
And
that
if-
so
and
that- so
if
that we
it's
don't
this-
end up, you know,
Are you comfortable that you know where the right of way is, where the legal?
Well,
is?
they've
Well-
already agreed that this road is in the center.
Right.
We're gonna measure up 24.5 feet on either 24 feet
I think
9
though,
inches.
Because in this document here, it talks about it's 3 rods in some places and 2 rods in the other.
Let's not,
Well, we're not buying a survey. If a good doctor wants to spend his money on a survey, that's fine.
when I drive
town
through
is
there,
gonna-
and when I drive through there and I
I'll let
look
you
at
go,
that
sir.
area, the roadside area, as Jeremy mentioned, there are stone walls to the east, or toward Wolfboro, there are stone walls toward Tuftonboro. And to my eye, the stone wall is about the edge of the right-of-way. These boulders are closer to the road than the distance the stone walls are off, which is why it's, you know, to somebody just driving through, it's like, whoa, they're, you know, on the roadside. So where a surveyor would put a pin, you know, I don't know, but I think it's fair to say that that area alongside the road has been used as roadside for,
A few years.
yeah, for many, many years. And back to the stone walls, where there are stone walls, and about the same distance out where there aren't stone walls. An area.
And then the issue becomes parking. So if we want to create extra roadway on the
I have,
west side,
that's another issue. I have no problem working with these people of moving the parking to the other side. Maybe the road agent needs to cut a couple trees or something like that. And I have no problem the town doing that over a period of time.
There's enough, I don't think you even have to cut anything down, on the other side of the road. I mean, if I had a Y body, you know, but if you have any other routine truck or park, there's enough space there along the shoulder that I don't think you'd have to cut anything down. If you did, it would be the most minuscule amount.
Well,
On the other side, yes.
you'd be interested in this. I have another job that deals with juveniles in the school district. I'm a truant officer. And isn't it amazing, I didn't have my camera with me, but at the height of a snowstorm, I go past your house. I count 11 vehicles, 4 trucks with trailers. The snowplow comes the other way. I have no problem driving by. He has no problem plowing. So with the 11 cars that were parked there, there's plenty of room. If you're willing to, maybe we need to put a no parking sign up and move the cars to parking on the other side. To me, that's a no-brainer.
That's, no parking is a discussion for another day.
So,
So,
I understand, yeah.
so
you know, now the ultimate issue of access at that point is difficult in that we know that for many, many years, people have been launching and recovering bomb houses there, have been putting boats in and taking them out, apparently across your property.
Yes.
And so this is a, it's a long-standing situation that,
we're gonna have to take a look at it.
yeah,
We really are.
yeah.
Because I mean, we may be dealing with a prescriptive easement issue. I mean, we don't have to talk about the right of way anymore, which would disappoint me mightily, but I guess we need to look at it again. But I think we can come to an agreement that we are gonna move the stones to 24 feet from the center line of the road. Okay with you guys?
Why don't we go take a look at what we decide?
I think,
Out of courtesy, we'll let
Yeah.
them know. They've
yeah,
been courteous with us, I can be courteous with them.
Well, yeah, we just don't want to prolong this thing. I mean, the ice is out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, you need to see it there, and upon that, say, and just look and say, okay, can you protect the quality of the pond, and how could that be achieved also, you know?
Well, that's an issue we need to address as well, but it's not this issue.
I understand, I understand.
I have another question, but go ahead if you have it.
Do you want to open up the public input?
May I please open it up and let everyone who has a question ask one
You
question?
understand, and if you want to take that
Okay.
pen out and shoot yourself in the head.
Does anybody have a question or a comment? Hands up here.
Yes, the fire chief isn't here. This last winter, we've had to use our ice boat out on the big lake many times for thin ice rescues. I want to take a close look at a narrow access. I don't know if he can get his ice boat through a narrow access to get out into Lower Beach Pond, should he have to pull somebody out of the water out there. That would be a major safety concern to me, especially in the spring, which is when people tend to go through. So maybe talking with him about it, have our selectmen do that would be a good thing as well, because that's the only access that there would be.
Is it possible to do it on the person, there's a narrow area where the road goes over, and we're here, and Mr. Ringer is here, and he has land, if you're gonna go on somebody's property, that's open.
He's not here, so he can't.
Yeah.
So, no, but I'm saying
bringing up
if
the
you did
point
ice
because-
boat out
right.
there,
Access
he's
Well, I'm bringing up the point because the airboat has to get out
Excuse
there,
me.
maybe.
This gentleman has the floor.
And we just, I would like everybody just to keep that in mind when we're talking about access, if we would, please.
right.
Did I see another hand up over here?
No, I was suggesting.
Hi Ben, how you doing?
My name is
You all
Ben
look
Ladd,
great,
and
by the
I've
way.
been involved with this situation since early September. I think there's a whole lot of miscommunications with all parties involved, and if you give me a little bit of room, I'll speak to it. I met with Carolyn on September 23rd. How do I remember that? That was my birthday. And I had concerns about the placement of these rocks, and I asked her to check with the selectmen, to check with town council, the municipal association, Primex, the town's insurance carrier, as to the legality and the liability of this issue. It just kind of died right there. And as far as I know, the only thing that took after that was on December 29th. I don't know if that's the correct date, but it was towards the end of December. I was a property owner in Hidden Valley. My son is the owner of that property now. I have used that public access up there for over 50 years. I've never seen any boats much larger than 16 feet. They're all utility boats. At one time, there was a kind of an unwritten rule that you wouldn't have any horsepower over 5 horsepower. So these weren't very big boats. I understand, and my issue is that the boulders were, it was said it was okay to put them in there. However, they're in the town's right of way, and that I have an issue with. I have an issue with losing the public access. I agree with you 100%. I've been involved with environmental issues with boat ramps, and I'm in one right now. I do know a little bit something about them, and as Chip said, that's another issue, and I think it should be addressed. That's the only access to the pond, and we, as a town, have got to take care of it. You had some other issues. I think those were police issues. I can't speak to them. I can't address it. If you've got people trespassing on your property, if you've got people abusing your property, that's a police issue. That's to be taken up with them. I think the issue right here is, let's get our right-of-way back, and let's see if we can all come to an agreement and have a boat launch up there. People don't launch multi-horsepower boats or big trailers. I used my boat was a 14-foot boat, and I launched it there for years. I haven't been up there for 5 or 6 years, but
I can tell you, sir, now.
I have been up there.
The bigger boats.
Just a
that have
minute.
been-
Let him finish,
I'm
okay?
sorry.
And
I'm sorry.
then I'll let you respond, okay?
I have been up
Thank you.
there and I have measured that road and that right of way 6 times, from summer, fall, winter, spring. And I think I know where the right of way is. And but I think everybody's kind of got to work together here. We got to get a little bit better communications and see if we can resolve it.
Go ahead, sir.
That's why, in response to the Department of Environmental Services, who came and looked, and I said, in the letters here with the town, they looked at the rock, at the boulders and where it was, and the decision from the Department of Environmental Services, the state, said no violation on that, the way things were then. So at least this was.
Well, we don't have an issue with a DES violation with your rocks. The issue is with the actual launch itself. That's where you have the erosion. But I think you'll find that you have a much larger stormwater runoff erosion problem with the second beach than you do with that boat launch.
Well, you finished, but I can't address that. I can only address
Our property, yeah.
the environmental issues that have occurred with the runoff. You can see the mud being washed into the
Yep.
lake from the big tracks that are created by trucks.
But if you don't fix that issue, if you don't take the mud out, it's gonna keep going in there. So that's an issue. You have to fix it. You have to fix what's broken.
That's why we put the
But
rocks.
the rocks aren't gonna fix it.
Yes, it will, because then trucks can't park there and create the destruction. That was the goal, is to protect, it was an environmental issue to protect the quality of the lake from the runoff, from the trucks and the tire tracks, and as people coming out of the lake and pulling a trailer, they had to gun it, and that created deeper and deeper tracks, and with every rain, there's more and more wash off down and more runoff into the lake. That was the issue, and if one could see that, since we lived there, I can tell you what has happened over the course of time. So, again, this was done to protect a resource for all, not our resource. This is to protect, and that's why the Hidden Valley Property Owners Association agreed and supported this to protect the water quality and from some of the issues. That was the problem.
Well, I disagree with your cure. It can be cured, but
Okay,
that's
guys,
not how you cure
we're
it.
getting into an argument here, and you're both nice people.
That's fine.
Anything else from the selectmen?
Well, obviously, the issue of water quality is something we need to deal with.
Yes.
Runoff is what we need to deal with. As far as the milfoil issue, there's a program for inspecting boats. I mean, every time I go, so.
Is it fair to say that we will make a time and the three of us will go take a gander?
Well, that's good,
Yes.
yeah.
Do you
Just
want to do
schedule
that
that.
in fairness to both sides here?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Before I close and move on to other things, I want to compliment everybody here. It's fun to be a selectman when people are civil and polite with each other, and I want to say thank you to every person here. It's refreshing. Okay, Joe, do you need to switch film?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for stopping by. Nice to meet you again.
Thank you so very much. Really
At least we leave you smiling.
Thank you very much, Lloyd.
As you said before, people think this is
Didn't feel it, don't worry.
It's also on camera, so that's a question. Travel safe, my friend.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You guys need to take a break, are you all ready to?
But he didn't step.
How much more do we have?
Step in the side. Didn't hurt him at all.
And this just sort of summarized our testimony. And then I've done a little diagram that I think probably.
Yeah, I have a pretty good memory.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming all the way up.
I am.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, review and approval of 4:10:17 minutes. All right.
Yeah.